in 3 years from now, we're going to find that everyone is going to have an AI ride along. Everyone is going to have, just like everybody has a cell phone, that the adoption is going to accelerate if companies do what they're supposed to be doing. And we're not going to build an app that's going to relinquish your management muscle. You are the one who has to really read the feedback on the person and make a human-to-human connection. We're creating an ability for them to augment their roles, to have more meaningfulness of the day. We have to keep human judgment, empathy, connection. We have to, all these things that take our emotional intelligence to make a decision, we have to maintain human.
Yo, it's the future, don't hit the snooze. AI is here giving humans the boost. Team Humans rolling, brains in the game with Dan Turchin. Y'all remember the name. People reign in the mix, no stopping the flow. Better work, better life, yeah, we're ready to go. Robots and humans, a collab, you know. Okay, let's start the show.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome back to AI in the Future of Work, episode 390. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleRain, the AI platform for IT and HR employee service. If you haven't yet, punch that button in the show notes and subscribe to the weekly newsletter. We share some fun facts and things that don't always make it into the main show. If you like what we do, please give us a like and a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you know what? It is your duty to humanity to share this episode or anyone that you enjoy with just one friend. They'll know that you care about using AI to make humans better. If someone that you know shared this with you, say thanks and pay it forward. If you leave a comment, I just may fish it out of the listener mailbag and include it in an upcoming episode like this one from Kyle in San Antonio, whose favorite episode is number 227 with Rodrigo Lang, Samba Nova CEO, on how he raised more than $1 billion to build AI chips and compete with NVIDIA. It's a fun conversation. He's wonderful. We learn from AI thought leaders weekly, and of course, the added bonus, you get one AI fun fact. Here it is for today. Tom Rockman writes on AI policy perspectives about AI manipulation based on a conversation with AI researchers Sasha Brown, Selim El-Sayed, and Kanfer Akbulut about research they conducted for Google DeepMind on harmful manipulation by models to safeguard against deceptive practices like gaslighting and emotional pressure, including just plain lying. In it, the researchers define the threat by distinguishing persuasion, which is appealing to reason, from manipulation, which is undermining autonomy through trickery or pressure. They identify three primary concerns: intentional misuse by humans to influence others, 2, inadvertent manipulation by the AI itself, and 3, self-interested AI acting to achieve its own goals. They propose a process-based safety approach rather than just banning specific outcomes like using AI for medical advice. They focus on detecting harmful mechanisms such as gaslighting, where AI makes users doubt their own perceptions, psychophancy, we're all familiar with that, where AI uses flattery to lower users' guard, or false urgency, where AI pressures users into quick, high-stakes decisions. It's an interesting read, very well researched. Of course, we will share the link to the full article in the show notes. My commentary on this one: as bad actors exploit AI for personal gain, it's important to remind ourselves that AI, at least based on today's limited LLM-driven use cases, only knows what we teach it and represents the amalgamated voices of all data on which it has been trained. Accordingly, AI is likely to manipulate humans because humans manipulate each other. AI has been trained to find and execute every technical vulnerability and also every human psychological and emotional vulnerability. We should never be surprised when AI outputs something that is human-like and pattern matches human-like manipulative behavior. With that assumption, we must hold vendors accountable to watermark AI output, offer citations and explanations about the machine's chain of thought process, monitor models for tone and output shifts, and provide clear, human-readable warnings when suspected nefarious behavior occurs. We control the inputs, we control the outputs. We are responsible for ensuring the AI narrative is focused on what AI is doing for us versus what AI is doing to us. Of course, we'll continue to unpack that important topic in the weeks and months ahead. Now, shifting to this week's amazing conversation. Arnnon Geshuri has a legendary track record as a people leader at some of the most high-profile tech companies over a period of literally decades. He's currently responsible for developing culture and talent pipelines at Snowflake, where he's the chief people officer. He previously served as the chief people officer at Livongo Health. Prior to that, he was vice president of HR at Tesla, where he oversaw its growth from a mere 400-person startup to a 35,000-person transportation juggernaut. Before Tesla, he was a senior director of staffing ops at Google. He also held leadership roles at E-Trade Financial and Applied Materials. Arnnon holds a bachelor's in psychology from the University of California at Irvine. Go Anteaters, always wanted to say that. And a master's in IO psychology from San Jose State University. Go Spartans. And gosh, without further ado, Arnnon, it's my pleasure to welcome you to AI in the Future of Work. Let's get started by having you share a bit more about that illustrious background and how you got to where you are today.
Well, Dan, thank you so much. I really appreciate being here today, and it's been, I'm just excited about this conversation. So my journey, you kind of outlined it really well. I think how I would encapsulate it is I've always been compelled to join companies that are at the cutting edge, that are innovative, that require also the HR organization, the people organization, to be just as innovative as the company itself. So when I started with semiconductors, I moved into E-Trade, and E-Trade at the time was taking brokerage online, becoming a full financial institution. That was basically FinTech 1.0 way back when. And then through Google and Tesla, Livongo and Livongo Health, and now at Snowflake, it's all been about companies who are trying to change their sector, change the world. And it requires a people function that's just as innovative, that is just as creative, that is just as forward-thinking to basically support the culture and the vision of the organization.
A couple platitudes that I think you probably have heard, and probably we're aligned on this one. I firmly believe that your culture is your IP, your intellectual property, and your customer experience will never be better than your people experience. Talk me through kind of what you see as the role of the head of people at an organization that, really in any of the innovative companies that you've been at, it is all about the people and empowering them. And how do you think about your responsibility in that head of people role?
Yeah. One of the things that's super important, Dan, that I've learned over time is how you think about positioning the people function within that particular organization. So it's not a copy and paste, one going from one company to the next company and using the same techniques. It doesn't quite work because each culture is different. What I found as kind of this thread throughout the different organizations is three things. The first one is the people function to support the organization, especially within a high-tech organization, has to have good people analytics, good data management, a good understanding of the information, because what you're dealing with is you're dealing with a bunch of engineers in many organizations, and you have to speak the same language. You have to say, okay, I can't go with 100% soft skills. I have to say, this is what the trends of the environment are saying. This is what benchmarks are out there in the world. This is what insights I'm gleaning from survey data or for other analytics, other insights that I can gain from the organization. So I have to have that as a common language. The second one is, and I mentioned it, is about innovation. So you can't just use what's been done for 10, 20 years. You really have to say, all right, these are foundational components from maybe other company experiences, from what the benchmarks say out in the world. But you have to modify. You have to really think about what's going to work here, what's going to elevate the people, what's going to help the organization through transformation, what's going to help the organization think about things differently, what's going to help people feel connected to the company, right? Super important. How are you going to make sure they're amplifying humanity, right? So each combination of what you do is slightly different. And the last one is really about creating an environment that there's really great unfiltered communication and that people trust what you're telling them, right? So the trust and communication has to flow freely. You have to be able to talk to people in the organization. You have to get feedback. So all this mixes together to create this framework where you're building something for the company that will help, again, elevate the people, make them feel connected to the organization, and make them just want to amplify their work and do great things.
You had me at amplifying humanity.
Hmm.
But you and I have both been doing this for long enough that we go back to a time when the perception of the role of HR, I know we're starting to migrate away from that title or that label, but it wasn't about amplifying humanity. Talk us through maybe from your days at Applied Materials up through now at Snowflake. How have you seen kind of the role of the people leader change?
Yeah, I'll even go farther back. So the 1950s, right? The personnel department was created, and it just basically was a very transactional organization. You wanted to get a promotion, you filled out a paperwork in triplicate, got a copy of it, and filed away, and you did it. And that was kind of the HR organization. In the US, over time, lots of things happened. Like there was lots of studies on human behavior, so it became a big thing about organizational theory, and human behavior became an academic discipline. You had people who thought about the function of HR as something a lot more strategic. So how do you help build influence? How do you create an environment where people are excited to be there? So all this started to really accelerate. So, and I do want to mention that I think COVID had a really big impact on the people function. My take on COVID is two things happened, Dan. The first one was that people became disconnected to their job. As you know, like a lot of people had to work from home. A lot of people basically left their job. We had the Great Resignation, if you remember that, the highest rate of people leaving their work. And so they kind of disconnected to one of their foundational components in a company. The second is when they left, they also stopped their education. A lot of times they learn on the job, they learn through education. So when people started coming back post-COVID, there was a huge push for the people function not only to think strategically, but to invite these people back to think about how do you re-educate people? How do you build more connections in the workplace? How do you really – so it gave an extra oomph to the people function to drive a whole new set of skill sets for the organization. So I saw this becoming an important part of it as well: education and training, and reconnecting with your coworkers and with the company and with the mission. So that combined with what I mentioned before, people analytics, you have this really important function where you're building humanity, you're building connection, you're educating people for the future. You're measuring everything that you do, and it's all on the people function to create that. No other part of the company is going to think about those components, think about the human aspect of work. So all those come together to create an environment where it's ripe for the people function to accelerate companies, to think about these and to make sure you optimize and amplify. And it's really an important, pivotal, transitional time for people functions throughout the world.
There's one other important topic that's making your job more challenging, I'd argue, than ever. And that's that in addition to people thinking about their role in the traditional organization, they're now questioning what is the future of the organization, and am I training a bot to take my job? Did I make the correct career decision? All these questions that humans in a company have always had are now amplified, to go back to that word, based on these new pressures and all this new confusion. How do you think about, when leaders come to you, or when any member of Snowflake comes to you with kind of these more existential questions? How do you address that from a people leadership perspective?
So one thing is that last phrase is really important. You have to make sure the people leaders in the organization think about this collectively, and you harness that ability for all those people leaders to influence their employee base to make sure that everyone is aligned and people feel comfortable. But yes, the evolution of the workplace is here. We have AI as part of everyone. It's the buzzword, but it's also The future is happening now. I mean, we're building applications internally. Companies are leveraging it to help to think about the content of the job, think about the content of what we can make more meaningful for people. So what we did at Snowflake is we thought about how we want to present the world of AI in a very acceptable, digestible fashion for the organization. So we created basically a framework. The first is that if it's a tedious task, if it's repetitive, that we're going to automate, right? Anything that needs to be automated, in that sense, we can lift people up. And we have many examples in the company where, like one we did with job descriptions. Job descriptions take a long time to get done sometimes, and takes sometimes 2 hours to write and reiterate. We created an app internally that uses AI to bridge that, and we can get job descriptions done in 5 minutes. Okay. The second part of that framework is anything that's creative will augment. So we'll augment the creative. And that means, like, for example, at Snowflake, we built a model where we're doing a mentor-mentee program where people can sign up either to be a mentor or a mentee. They fill out a questionnaire, and through AI algorithms, we're able to match people up. However, the final decision of who gets what mentor is left to the people, right? We help with some of the underpinnings, but actually the decision is left to the person and the coordinator of the program to go ahead and make a decision where it matches. So again, the second part of the framework is what is creative we augment. The last is really important, and that is we have to keep human judgment, empathy, connection, right? We have to, all these things that take our emotional intelligence to make a decision, we have to maintain human. That some things are giving people promotion, talking about their career feedback, allowing them to talk about what they want to do long term in the company. All that has to be left with the human. So as long as we frame it that way, say, look, we're not going to take away your humanity. We're actually going to elevate some of the tedious tasks to make your job more meaningful, more impactful, and the stuff that really requires you to think and have judgment and be present is going to be preserved. So that is really important, that framework. So once we've introduced that, it helped with adoption, it helps with evolution, it helps to migrate people who are uncomfortable with all these changes into something that they can basically understand and accept. And again, it increases adoption.
That framework makes so much sense, the way you describe it. And yet the narrative in the press, it distills what you just said into a soundbite that says, and all of the people whose job it was to write job descriptions, they're doomed. And you and I would say, well, actually, that's not a whole job. and nobody came into work and said, today's going to be awesome because I get to spend 2 hours per job description writing a bunch of job descriptions. So to everyone listening who maybe doesn't appreciate the nuance of that, what are the people in HR who were writing the job descriptions? What's filling the time that the 95% of their time that it doesn't take to do those tedious tasks? What are they doing instead?
They're actually thankful. So the whole idea is that we're not automating a job away. We're creating an ability for them to augment their roles, to learn about other areas, to have more meaningfulness of the day. Instead of just a checklist of all the things that you did today, I wrote 10 job descriptions and I went home. You say, I wrote 10 job descriptions, it only took took 5 minutes to do each. So it's done. Then I was able to do all these other projects. I was able to really focus on making impact in the organization, building other programs that will help elevate the company. Their job becomes more meaningful. It's like they realize how helpful this could be. So there's no trepidation. It's adoption. Like once they get used to it, now I have time for all this other stuff I wanted to do. And they can focus on their career growth. They can focus, I've always wanted to try this. Now they have time. So it's about carving out time to amplify what you do, carving out time to grow, to develop in other areas, and become much more impactful for the organization.
a lot of the tedious tasks that you're describing are the ones that, ironically, are dehumanizing, right? They're the ones that make you feel robotic at work. And just amplifying your point, when we take those tasks away from the job, what's left is room to do more of the work that you love. I know I'm just restating what you shared, but I think it's
No,
an
it's exactly
important
right.
point.
It's very well said, and it's just creating meaningfulness. Like people step away and say, where have you been all my life? Like I actually feel like I've done something today, done something important.
Today's episode is brought to you by my company, PeopleRain. As you hopefully know, PeopleRain is the AI platform that automates work. Tens of millions of employees around the world get back 4 to 6 hours per week because PeopleRain automates away the friction. Imagine a world where your teams never have to wait for technology upgrades or to have a human reset their password or get added to a distribution list or get help with payroll, PTO, or benefits. Inbox zero for the help desk, zero friction for employees. That's the future of work. That's PeopleRain. We're offering all members of Team Human, and hey, that's you, our listeners, an exclusive discount on PeopleRain just for being part of this amazing community. Get the discount code at peoplerain.io/podcast. That's PeopleRain, like the reign of a king or queen.io/podcast. Now back to this week's conversation.
Once they've took all those tedious tasks and they've carved it out of their role and did so many other things, they're so thankful.
Yeah, well said. So there's having the framework, and then there's knowing that you need to communicate it in a way that is positive and addresses the valid concerns that every employee has. Because when they leave the office, virtual or physical office, and they're doom scrolling, this is not, Arnnon's framework is not what they're reading about when they doom scroll. How do you train your leaders, your managers, to communicate the positivity and the tone and the human first approach that you're taking when there's still going to be some valid concerns that they're bringing into the workplace?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things that come to mind on this question. The first one is, we've created a coursework at Snowflake called AI for Everybody, which means that we want everyone to take just a few courses. You can practice. There's study sessions just to get used to all the tools, and so it doesn't become this foreign set where that's inaccessible, but it becomes something that's very useful. So we get people trained, and leaders are asked to encourage their folks to go ahead and do that. Second is, we just ask people to be curious. We have so many cool tools. Please play with them. Figure out stuff. Create your own app. Just all that it helps to create adoption. This next one is really important. Snowflake intelligence that we use internally, and that's out there for in many cases out there for use cases for our customers, is bridging the gap between the technical and the non-technical, because you're using natural language to ask the application what to do, to look at the data, to build insights. And when sometimes non-technical HR people, and I'm going to focus on the people function, when non-technical HR people are thinking about, I don't know how to use these fancy programming tools, I say you don't have to know. What you can do is use a natural language interface, and you can be creative. You can build what you want to build. So just by getting them used to using the tools, getting them a little bit of background training, making sure the people leaders are encouraging that, and what I mentioned before about starting with repetitive tasks get automated, all that has helped with adoption and the positivity. This is actually accessible to me. I can figure this out. And I evangelize this when I talk to customers. I say the same thing. Maybe their HR teams or people teams are a little bit hesitant to adopt the AI model because of whatever their fears are. And I say it's okay. The water's warm on the other side, and you can use all these tools and this methodology to make it a very positive experience, to make people feel comfortable about bridging and trying something new. And once people start, they keep on going, realizing how helpful it is to them to make a meaningful creative job more meaningful.
It's the number one technique that I encourage other organizations to adopt as well, which is not making anyone feel like they're going to be penalized for using AI. Um, Historically, employees have felt like they're penalized. We used to call it shadow IT, and now there's shadow AI. Can I share openly what I'm doing? Will I be exposed? And just as a leader, making clear that we experiment as a culture.
It's such a great point, Dan. I'm so excited that you said that, because the culture does have to enable people, allow people, give permission. Just use it. Like, we are encouraging you to be curious. If you want to write an internal memo and use some type of AI product, do it. Like, it makes you go faster and easier, and you can edit it at the end. Like, we want people to use everything at their disposal and then create sometimes their own application. Our platform does allow, even my own recruiting team, they sit there and they'll go, in 2 days, they create an app to help them with a comp tool, or create an app that helps them look through interview data. So it really is quite phenomenal. But the whole idea is that the environment and the culture has to be supportive of that. That's a really key point that says, we want you to use it. We want you to experiment. We want you to be curious and just go for it.
Yeah, we can't have this important conversation about embedding AI in the culture without also talking about stewardship of the data, because part of your role is that you and your teams manage systems that contain a lot of very sensitive, personally identifiable data, PII. And as I kind of mentioned in the fun fact, the reason AI can output things that we don't like or don't expect is because of the underlying data that was used to train it. And there's even a heightened sensitivity when we're talking about these HR use cases. How do you and your team think about being good stewards of the data and understanding, kind of what are the appropriate guardrails to put in place before deploying an AI use case?
So a person's not going to have access to data that they shouldn't have access to. So a primary part of creating the infrastructure for any of these applications that we build out and deploy internally is that it does follow rules around access of data, right? It's very tight. We have a very good security-based concept where if you're a leader and you'll have access to your organization, just like you would in a normal HR application, right? You can see the salary, you can see their level, you can see all the people, functional areas. You can see that in the data. But so we control that and make sure that it's elegantly placed, so you're not going to have accidental viewpoints anywhere. So we will not roll anything out internally until it's well tested, and it does follow that format. And the main thing about this, though, Dan, is that it was really important is about trust, right? If we start rolling stuff out and it has leaky tools, and people are going to not trust all these applications. So we are so focused on making sure that the data itself is clean and you see what you're supposed to see, because the trust of the data, the trust of the tool is primary. And I can't emphasize that enough. You screw that up and you screw up, future deployments.
So building on that, one thorny area that's become kind of a lightning rod, love to get your perspective on it, is AI to automate hiring, candidate evaluation, selection, resume screening, where, if you outsource some of that, I'm trying to not editorialize here too much, but if you outsource that to a service where you may not have controlled the data that was used to go into the resume screening service, whatever it is, there may be some latent bias built into how that system makes its decisions. How do you think about where and when it's appropriate, given the possibility of latent bias seeping into AI decisions?
So that goes back to the framework that I mentioned before, where you automate the repetitive, right? You augment the creative, but then there's this judgment that you have to keep human. So you have to intentionally look at your workflow, and you have to say, all right, we can easily maybe use the AI tool to capture all the interview feedback, and maybe it helps summarize it potentially. But I'm asking the recruiter, don't just rely solely on what the output is. Your job is to look at the data and make a judgment call about what direction we should go with this candidate. So because I'm giving these guardrails, and I think other companies should do the same, we're not just relying on the output of the AI algorithm, but we're providing that point in time that is right for that company to make some judgment calls regarding that individual. So we are intentionally thinking about it. It's not an afterthought, it's a forethought to making sure that we are building up to a point and driving really good decision making at the tail end to encourage really good judgment, because only the recruiter really knows who the right person is for their company. They understand the culture, they understand the personalities, so they have to make that call. The one thing I just want to mention is also, as we automate, some of the let's say the interview feedback gets collated, it does provide the recruiter more time for that thoughtfulness. It does create more time for that connection with the candidate. It does create more time that they can amplify the human part of it. So instead of just using the data, they also have more time to talk to the candidate. They have more time to interface and connect and learn about the person as a human being. And they will then have that piece of data that is perfect for making a decision about hire or not hire. So by automating, we're taking out some repetitive, leaving more time to elevate the human, to be human, and to connect with that person, with that candidate, and make a really good judgment call. And that is the magic.
I love the way you made that point. We're really reinserting humanness into the process, because the fact is, this can't be reduced down into AI is bad, good. It's really about the process and how you make it a part of your culture. And like I said, it's a third of your framework. Specifically, pre-AI, newsflash, humans made mistakes and humans were biased. So, like you, I strongly agree that this is an opportunity to bring humanness back into the process and, in theory, make it less biased.
I agree. And yes, and you have a good judgment of what works in your company, and you want to keep that with the recruiter, keep that with the hiring manager, say this person would be great for us. And again, it's a people business. So we want to keep the people at the forefront.
So given this framework, I'm sure you get inundated, daily, literally daily, with requests for new potential AI use cases. And, I'm sure you have a process for kind of evaluating the requests. And any examples you can share of where something came across your desk and you said, I get the business request, but I'm not comfortable doing this?
It kind of reflects what I mentioned before. Yes, and I have a good example. So sometimes a manager, a people manager, wants to have more automation when it comes to performance reviews. So they'll say, hey, based on all this feedback, why don't you do a recommendation about what their rating is going to be? Based on all the feedback, positive, negative, let's do some algorithm. And I said, stop. We're not going to build an app that's going to relinquish your management muscle. You are the one who has to really read the feedback on the person and make a human-to-human connection. So we're not going to build a performance management system that automates everything through the rating system. We're just not going to do it. We're going to preserve it. We're going to stop right here, and it's all you. And so, but we're going to give you the tools to be a better manager, to make good decisions, to strengthen your abilities and capabilities. Because once you lose, again, that trust with that human, with your person, and they realize, wait a minute, did you make this call or did the AI make this call? You've lost the game. It really is about that you, as a human being, are helping another human being get better. And it's that connection, it's that trust. So I said, no, we're not going to do that. And you have to just be a better people manager and learn the skill sets and connect with your person.
That's an excellent example. Yeah, thanks for sharing that one. So Arnnon, you're kind of on my personal people leader Mount Rushmore. Congratulations, by the way.
Well, thank you.
But given just the history we talked about, your background, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about when you've been at companies that have been in hyper growth mode. I referenced the 400 to 35,000 person journey at Tesla, and I know you had similar trajectory at Google, other places as well. How have you thought about building a culture uh, maintaining the kind of core tenets of a culture while you're building at scale?
So it goes back to, and I alluded to this earlier, but it goes back to thinking about the company itself. And at the heart of those companies that I've been at personally, there's an engineering underpinning, an engineering capability within the company. So I knew as to scale, the only way I could do that is to create a really strong people analytics function, a strong data repository, so I could measure everything that I did. Because sometimes in the past, HR people folks would use intuition to just roll out programs. But sometimes they didn't land. And when they didn't land, you either thought about, oh, I'm not sure why it didn't work, because you didn't add all this element of analytics and measuring what you're doing. So I knew anything I had to roll out, it was going to be critical for me to build a people function so I could measure. And when I rolled something out, it was based on information I had from the organization. And also I knew that it failed, I can measure why it failed. So I could be much more precision oriented when it comes to rolling out programs, knowing how to fix them, knowing how to change a variable, redeploy something. So in hyperscale, you don't have time to like second guess. You have to say, I know why this didn't work, and I'm going to try this and this and this, and we're going to figure it out at speed. So in all those areas, when I was at Tesla or Google and Snowflake, it is about the underpinnings of people analytics, creating measurement of what you're doing and rolling things out, really creating a people analytics function that supports all of your programs. And then you can build on that. You can build your training development because you know what training needs are needed in the organization. You can build a performance management system because this is the type of company it is and what you're trying to emphasize. You can build learning development organizations. You can build all these components. So how do you recruit, what you recruit for? All of them are much stronger and much more targeted because you've built an underpinning of data, analytics, and insights.
For all the listeners who maybe aspire to someday, have a people leadership role like yours, what have you maybe learned in previous roles, either those two high-profile ones that I mentioned, but any place else in your career that you feel like now at Snowflake you've had to kind of unlearn, or been things that you wouldn't do again because you saw them maybe not work?
So I have had the privilege of working for companies that are they have a culture of experimentation and iteration and changing variables. So at every company, I would fail. Every company, I would try something and I would fail. But I'm in an environment that if you can learn from your failure, you can learn from what did not work and make it better. That is usually what is the key to success. Because I think where sometimes HR leaders fail is they don't try things. They're not curious. They don't experiment. They just copy and paste things from one organization to the next. It doesn't quite work. They'll tweak it a little bit. But I just don't think that's the right move. You go from place to place with all these learnings. Like, okay, here's frameworks and here's models and here's what I tried before, but each company is different. So it's not about trying something that didn't work before. It's more like, oh, I've tried all these different things in my life and I have a whole portfolio of different ideas, and I'm just going to try some stuff and see how it works. So it is about me and my team figuring out where we start, how you build and transform a culture, and start to experiment with programs and with capabilities that will elevate the human at the company. As long as you can do that and you iterate and you learn from your mistakes, no matter where you are, the people function can be very successful.
I spent several years at ServiceNow in the early days where Frank Slootman, who was the CEO of Snowflake, now is on the board, created a culture that was very different from the one that I joined when ServiceNow was a startup. It was responsible for making that company very, very successful in ways that we on the early team didn't envision. But I would say I took away a lot of lessons that, in my subsequent roles as a CEO, I'd say I wouldn't celebrate as part of our culture?
Well, I'll generalize the question a little bit, if you don't mind. So I've worked for many founders in my life and many strong CEOs. And I think the function or the responsibility of a people leader is to take these amazing ideas that the CEO has and to translate them to what's going to work for the human population. So sometimes what I think I'm pretty good at, I always can be better, and I fail at it too. But what I've learned, the muscle I've learned is I've taken this amazing idea. They said, let's just do this for the organization, and I will try to influence and say, okay, I get your idea, the spirit of what you want to do. What if we did it this way? Like, here's another way. The same outcome will happen, but I think this will be more digestible for the population. This will be a better ability for the people to absorb what you're asking for. And so I've done this over and over and over again, where, again, taking a very strong idea that I thought probably in its core or its raw form is probably not the best way to approach it. And I say, well, the culture we're building is this. What if we translate to this flavor? And then I think it'll be much more acceptable to the organization. So I'll just stay general on that, but it is the whole, because it happens all the time. I mean, just a constant flow. And I think a people's function head is to translate that into something that is adoptable and acceptable for the population.
Good answer. Diplomatic answer, by the way. We're about out of time, but you're not getting off the hot seat without answering one last important question for me.
Please.
I ask this one frequently, but it's because I'm genuinely interested in getting your perspective. When Arnnon and Dan are back here in, say, 3 years, we're having a version of this conversation. Kind of, we're replaying the tape from this one. We're recording this in first part of 2026. What's one thing that will be fundamentally different about how people work that maybe, today just seems like science fiction?
So I think in 3 years from now, we're going to find that everyone is going to have an AI ride-along. Everyone is going to have, just like everybody has a cell phone, that the adoption is going to accelerate if companies do what they're supposed to be doing and we educate the population and we educate the world. That the acceptance of AI, the power of it, the ability to amplify the human is going to be there. And they're going to realize in 3 years that AI can really help to elevate humanity. And so I think we're going to basically, our philosophy of this is going to be confirmed in 3 years, and people are going to see it, and people are going to live it, and it's just going to be part of our lives. And we're going to say, why did we hesitate? This is really something that's going to amplify who we are. It's going to say people can be people.
You're an inspiration. There are very few, as you know, very few voices, even in the people leadership community, that are talking about amplifying humanity. It's not a narrative that is yet broadly adopted. So I hope a lot of people listen to this and are inspired by it. Where can the audience learn more about you and the great work that you're doing at Snowflake?
Thanks. So I would love people to, if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I would love to hear from you. And I'm posting more about some articles and some other things that I'm getting involved in just to share and make sure we get the message out. So I'd love for people to link on me on LinkedIn. Great.
Well, I know this one sped by. It feels like we were kind of just getting started. Take me up on an open offer that you have to come back and share with us some more wins. All right.
Yeah, it's a commitment and a promise. Thank you, Dan.
Good. Okay. Well, this is wonderful. That is all the time that we have for this week on AI and the Future of Work. As always, I'm your host, Dan Turchin from PeopleRain. And of course, we're back next week with another fascinating guest.
Yo, it's the end of the show, time to power it down. AI's the sis, but humans wear the crown. Team Human in the house, got the vibe so clever. Dan Turchin from PeopleRain, making us better. We learned about AI for humans. We're ready to conquer the future, that's all for now. See you next time.